Let's talk a little bit about direct objects. Now, we'll start with a really simple English sentence. I eat. This sentence has two parts. It has a verb, the action of the sentence, and a subject, the person or thing that performs the action of the verb. Now we can make our sentence a little bit more complex. I eat cake. Now our sentence has three parts. We have the same verb and the same subject that performs the action of that verb, and we also have this last part here, cake, which is neither a subject nor a verb. So what is it? Well, the action of the verb eat is performed directly on cake, which makes cake a direct object of the verb eat. Another example would be, she buys a book. We have our subject performing the action of buying on our direct object, book. Now, an easy way to identify a direct object and to determine if your sentence actually has one or not is to ask yourself the question, subject, verb, what? So for example, in this sentence here, sentence 1, I eat what has no answer because there is no direct object. In sentence 2, I eat what has the answer cake, which makes cake our direct object as we previously identified. Similarly, in sentence 3, she buys what has the answer a book, making a book our direct object. This helps too for more complicated sentences, such as sentence number 4. They go to the park and throw a frisbee. So first, it helps to identify our subjects and verbs. We have two verbs here, go and throw, but both have the same subject, they. So, because direct objects depend on the verb that they belong to, we can break this up into two parts based on the verb. So we have our first section, they go to the park, then we have a conjunction that joins the two parts of the sentence, and our second part of the sentence is they throw a frisbee. So let's take a look at our first part up here, they go to the park. So we ask ourselves the question, subject, verb, what? They go what? What is not answered by to the park. To the park is not a what, it's a where. That means that this is not a direct object. This is, in fact, a prepositional phrase, which is not a direct object. Let's look at our next verb here. They throw a frisbee. They throw what? A frisbee. That means that a frisbee is, in fact, a direct object. The point of this example was to show you not only that you can have direct objects and not direct objects, but to show you that just because a verb has something written after it does not mean it's a direct object, so don't fall into that trap. Now let's talk about direct object pronouns. Hopefully you're familiar with subject pronouns, which are pronouns used to replace nouns or other pronouns in the subject of a sentence. Direct object pronouns do the same thing, but for objects of sentences. In English, our direct object pronouns are me, you, him, her, it, us, and them. And, for example, if we wanted to replace our direct object with a pronoun in this sentence, we would say she buys it instead of she buys a book. So all we've done is take this pronoun and stick it into our sentence in place of the original direct object. We have the same thing in Spanish too, but they work a little bit differently, and they're a little bit difficult to understand at first. So let's get started. The Spanish direct object pronouns are me, te, lo, la, nos, vos, and los, las. Now, me means me, te means informal you, nos means us, and vos means informal you, plural. The bottom row is what really trips people up at the beginning. because it's a little hard to understand just exactly what each of the pronouns means. So we'll start with lo. Lo can mean him, it for a masculine noun, or you, masculine formal. This means if you're referring to a male teacher, you would use the pronoun lo for a direct object. Similarly, la can mean her, it for a feminine object, or you for a female in a formal sense. So if your teacher were a female, you would use la instead of lo. Los means them for an all-male or mixed male and female group, and it means plural you for an all-male or mixed male-female group. And las means them for an all-female group, or you plural for an all-female group. Now, one final thing of super huge importance to note before you start working with these is that in Spanish, direct object pronouns come before their verbs. This is in contrast to English, where we would say something like I eat it, and the direct object pronoun is coming after its verb. In Spanish, it is reversed, and the pronoun comes before the verb. Let's take a look at an example. Yo como la manzana. I eat the apple. Alright, so let's identify the parts of our sentence. We have our subject, yo, our verb, como. Yo como what? I eat what? La manzana, the apple. So la manzana will be our direct object. To rewrite this sentence using a direct object pronoun, we need to first identify the pronoun we would use to replace la manzana. La manzana is feminine and singular, and we would replace it with it in English, which means we're looking for the feminine singular version of it in Spanish. Our choices for singular are lo and la is the feminine variant, so that will be the pronoun we use. This means that we will replace la manzana with la. Now for the order of our sentence, we can start with our subject, and we have our verb. Now remember that our object pronoun comes before the verb, so it goes right here. Yo la como translates to I eat it. Now, remember, as with subject pronouns, that you need to make sure to match your number and gender as well as the point of view and the formality. So it might seem overwhelming at first, but it's really pretty straightforward once you get the hang of it. So let's go through a few more examples. Alright, so let's start with example number 1. Ella compra una chaqueta. Number 2. Los niños venden sus autos. Alright, so let's look at our first sentence here. We have our subject and our verb, ella compra. Ella compra what? She buys what? Ella compra una chaqueta. She buys a jacket. That means that una chaqueta is our direct object. Now we need to choose the pronoun to replace this noun. Una chaqueta is feminine and singular, and we would replace it with it in English. That means that we're looking at our lo la over here, and we're choosing the feminine version, so la. Now, the order of our sentence, remember, is going to be subject, direct object, verb. Ella la compra. She buys it. Let's look at sentence number 2. Los niños venden sus autos. Again, we have our subject, los niños, our verb, venden, and los niños venden what? Sus autos. Their cars. So we have our direct object here. Now let's choose a pronoun to replace our direct object. Autos is masculine and plural, and we would replace sus autos with them in English, so we need some version of los, las. Because it's masculine, we take the masculine version, los. Remembering the order of our sentence, los niños los venden. The boys sell them. Let's take a look at a few more examples. We'll get a little more complicated this time so you can see what it looks like in a more complex sentence. Alright, so our first sentence, Marta quiere un libro para su clase de español. So what we're going to do here is identify our subject and verb. Our verb is quiere, and our subject is Marta. So we have our subject and verb. Now, Marta quiere what? Marta quiere un libro. So our direct object here is un libro. All of the rest of this is fluff. Para su clase de español is just a prepositional phrase that we can ignore. Un libro is masculine and singular. We need the masculine singular version of it, which is lo. So we have Marta lo quiere para su clase de español. Para su clase de español. Marta wants it for her Spanish class. Alright, moving on to our next sentence. Jaime llama al doctor porque su mamá está enferma. We have our subject performing the action, llama, and Jaime calls what? Jaime calls the doctor. Jaime llama al doctor. So our direct object is el doctor. Now, notice that we have al instead of el because we have the personal a plus el, which forms our contraction al. So just because you see that doesn't automatically disqualify it as a direct object, it just means that the personal a is involved. Okay, so remember, the rest of this is fluff that doesn't matter in choosing our pronoun. El doctor is masculine, and he's calling someone that he's not referring directly to, so we need essentially him. So we have Jaime lo llama porque su mamá está enferma. Alright, let's try one more. So we have she loves you. We're going to translate this all the way through. So first identify our subject and verb. We have she performing the action of love on our direct object, you. So, let's consider our sentence. We already have a direct object pronoun, you, so we can have a little p on there, which means that our choice for pronoun is pretty straightforward moving into Spanish. We can have either te for informal, or lo, la for formal. And let's assume that we're working with te. So that's going to be our pronoun. Then we have our subject, which will be ella. And we have two possibilities for loves. We can have querer, which is sort of like family love, like you would say, yo te quiero mamá, I love you mom. And we can have amar, which is more romantic love. We'll go with querer, just to keep things platonic. So, we have our subject and then our direct object before the verb. So, te quiere. So, ella te quiere, she loves you.